I don't get it, Vendar said as they crept down the torch-lit hallways of the temple. If you worship a god of death, why are you so concerned about saving the life of some girl? For that matter, why doesn't everyone who worships Anubis just commit suicide? Gwala expressed in Zumbucan his disapproval of the impolite question, but Akmotesh was used to it. Many people think the children of Anubis worship death. We do, but we also worship life. Does a farmer love the fruit but loathe the tree? No, the fruit is a part of the tree. This is why those faithful to the Lord of the tomb harness the power of death, but also the power of life. The warriors entered a room lined with the cages of various animals, rodents, fowl, even small cats and dogs. In the middle was a table made of a large, solid block of wood. A hefty meat cleaver lay embedded in the block, and both knife and table were stained red with blood. Looks like we found the kitchen, Vendar remarked. They're not much for gourmet cooking, are they? Another large chamber waited beyond the temple's food stores. This one was smaller in area than the main hall, but close to it in height, and as it housed a large statue of a creature with a human torso, but the head and lower body of a massive cobra. The statue had 6 arms, each grasping some sort of weapon, dismembered human body part, or various implement of religious significance. At the effigy's circular base, an opening in the floor gave access to a stairway winding into the levels below. Gwala spoke. Yes, Akmotesh replied, most likely, though I have also seen Apsut portrayed in other ways as well. Who can say what the gods truly look like? Perhaps they have no true shape or form. Looking more carefully at the statue, they noticed a message engraved near its base. Can you read Serpentine? Vendar asked. Akmotesh squinted at the placard for a few minutes. Little was known about the language of the children of Apsut, but mankind had been able to unravel some of the strange and alien tongue. Most of this was the product of those deplorable and traitorous humans who bartered with the snake people, selling them weaponry or, more often than not, slaves. Being that as it was, Akmotesh had made it a point to study what he could of the language. He interpreted, only those faithful to the first serpent may enter the living shrine? Shrine of the living? Perhaps I'm getting my words confused. Gwala offered his opinions, to which Akmotesh replied, agreed. Whatever it means, they probably took the girl below. Without a further thought, he began his descent, the others following behind. Why all the torches and braziers? Vendar whispered. I was told they can see in the dark. Some of them can, just as some are venomous, but others are not. Now quiet. The stairs led down for some time, but eventually they terminated, leading to a catacomb-like network of winding tunnels. Though removed from the main part of the temple, the group nonetheless encountered, from time to time, the occasional snake man, custodians of the shrine, or perhaps perverse pilgrims. But, shrouded with the shadows of the afterlife and aided with Gwala's hunting skills, these were easily slain. At one point Akmotesh reflected on how, in his many years of fighting and killing these creatures, he had never seen females or children of the species. Were they indistinguishable from the adult males? Or were they kept hidden in some sort of secret city of serpent people? There was much speculation about this, but, unlike other aspects of Snake Man culture and society, which were obscure but known, this was a complete mystery. There had been a time when Akmotesh would have thought about trying to keep some of the cultists alive and pressing them for information as to the whereabouts of his target, but he knew better. The children of Apsut were complete zealots, fanatics utterly devoted to destruction and death, and they would stop at nothing, not even spending their own lives, if it meant their cause could be furthered. For this reason he favored a quiet and deadly approach when dealing with them, and a loud and deadly approach when the former was unavailable. Eventually, the three found a wide passage where a broad stairway led up to an imposing double door. Gwala spoke. What'd he say? Asked Vendar. He said it looks like a place where the snake men could have taken the girl. Or where they might enshrine a particularly valuable relic, added the thief. As they approached, the hallway opened up to a side chamber. The group paused here, for from within issued a torrent of hisses and harsh vocalizations, commingling with similar sounds of another. Akmotesh III had traveled to many distant lands and heard many exotic peoples converse in many foreign tongues, but there were some aspects of language that, he found, were universal. One of these was that arguments always sounded the same, and this was an argument. Akmotesh and Gwala peered around the corner to observe the situation, while Vendar kept watch to the rear. In the room, 3 cloaked snakemen cultists stood facing each other, heatedly hissing and pointing accusingly. Behind them was a cluster of animal cages and hutches, similar to the ones they had seen in the temple above. Gwala prepared a dagger, awaiting the sign from his friend to release it at his target. Akmotesh waited, watching for the perfect moment to strike. He didn't have to wait long. Harsh words soon turned to blows, and one of the acolytes, in a display of dominance, struck the other, who, in turn, retaliated with all due savagery. Quickly, Akmotesh acquired Vendar's attention, then gave the signal. Gwala released the serpentine-bladed knife, which wheeled through the air, striking one of the snake men in the throat with deadly accuracy. "Allow us to assist you," cried Akmotesh as the 3 of them rushed into the room. The snake men, taken off guard, nonetheless put up what amount of fight they could, but were cut down with relative ease. "Do you have any idea what they were talking about?" asked Vendar. "I'm afraid my understanding of their language wasn't good enough. It sounded to me as though they were arguing about who was to feed the eyes, but that doesn't make sense." "Well, maybe you got the part about food right. They seem to have a pantry of sorts in this room." They investigated the series of cages more carefully. Like the ones above, these all contained a variety of small to medium-sized mammals. What made these beasts remarkable, however, was that each of them was totally black. Black rats with red eyes, black cats without a spot of white on their fur, black rabbits with glistening coats of jet. Even a few mink populated these hutches. "Curious," Akmotesh mused. "It's common for various religions to breed animals with certain traits for sacrificial use. Perhaps that's what these are." The priest's curiosity quickly gave way to determination, though, as he remembered the urgency of their mission. "We don't have time to consider it, though. Let's keep moving." They moved out of the chamber and up the stairs to the large double doors. About twice the height of a man, they were made from bronze and ebony and decorated with the likeness of a pair of reptilian eyes which gazed imposingly at the party. Carved on the stone wall beside the doors was a message written in serpentine. "The unworthy will be judged before the eyes of Apsut," Akmotesh read. "The eyes of Apsut!" exclaimed Vendar. "So the rumors are true. My days of toil and strife are over." "Don't be so quick to celebrate," Akmotesh cautioned. "This message hints at peril." Gwala offered an opinion. "You're right, Gwala. We cannot afford to leave any stone unturned in our search. Though my instincts tell me to turn away, my sense of duty urges me on." "Besides," added Vendar, "this could be the score of a lifetime. There's no way I'm turning back now." Akmotesh's sinewy muscles flexed as he tugged at the ring-like handles on the doors. With a resonance louder than he would have liked, they opened with a ch-chunk to reveal a long, dimly lit chamber filled with statues. The team held their weapons at the ready, their eyes darting about as they stalked into the chamber. Akmotesh observed the statues as they entered. They were odd, statues of snake men, but randomly placed throughout the gallery with seemingly no rhyme or reason to their placement. Though some had prosaic expressions, most seemed to be recoiling in surprise or terror, their jaws agape as though suddenly waylaid by some unimaginable horror. Though his attention was focused on identifying any hidden dangers or ambushes in the room, Akmotesh couldn't help but notice the intricate detail of these facsimiles. They looked extremely lifelike. It was unnerving and made only more so by the oddly quiet atmosphere of the room. Then, suddenly, a shuffling, dragging sound could be heard in the shadows. Akmotesh and Vendar assumed fighting stances, while Gwala readied his spear. They waited, prepared to pounce on whatever horror lurked there. A large lizard sauntered out from behind one of the statues, its forked tongue tasting the air. It was quite big, comparable to a medium-sized dog. A prominent crest of spines rose from its head and continued down the back, diminishing in size the closer they got to the tail. It didn't seem to be particularly alarmed by the presence of human intruders in its territory, Quite the opposite, it seemed wholly indifferent. For a moment the group stood confused as the scaly beast shuffled out in front of them, and then it stopped. Suddenly, the creature reared up on its hind legs and an unearthly glow began to emanate from its eyes. In that instant, everything came together for Akmotesh. The statues, the inscription near the door, the snake men's argument. Not a second too soon, the priest twirled around and clapped a hand across the eyes of each of his companions. "Cover your eyes! Don't look! Don't look!" he cried. Akmotesh remembered hearing strange stories of a mythical reptile during his travels. Sometimes it was a sort of snake, other times a lizard, still other times it was some sort of strange hybrid of the two. In any case, the stories told that its gaze could kill or, in some versions, turn men to stone. The priest, having been endowed by experience with a good knack for separating truth from fiction, dismissed them as exaggerations or perhaps even outright hoaxes. But sometimes, as he well knew, truth was stranger than fiction. "What's going on? What are you doing?" Vendar protested. "The lizard. It's what the snake people call the Eyes of Apsut. Its gaze can turn you to stone. Don't look." "Turn you to—" At first Vendar seemed incredulous, but then the facts of their situation came together. "By the gods!" he gasped. "Gwala, you know what to do, my friend." Gwala knew very well what to do. He had realized, just as Akmotesh did, what the creature was. His people had told stories of a reptilian beast that lived deep in the jungles. They said its gaze could turn men to stone, its breath could wilt flowers, and its bite carried enough venom to kill 100 men. Gwala had always thought them just stories, tales told by over-imaginative woodsmen, but he saw now that the stories were true. He and his friends had avoided the creature's deadly stare, but he knew, if something wasn't done soon, it would quickly be upon them, injecting its deadly poison into them with its lethal bite. He had the spear. It was up to him to end the creature before that could happen. But how could he hunt when he could not see? He had done it before, he remembered. The time when he slew the shadow beast of the nighttime forest, a great black cat that would come to the villages and pull the men screaming into the night, until Gwala had put an end to it. He had had to trust his other senses then, his hidden senses, the ones that told him where things were when he could neither see nor hear. In a way, the lizard would be easier prey than the shadow beast, for he could hear the clicking of the lizard's claws on the ground, the dragging of its tail on the cold stone, whereas the shadow beast had made no sound at all. Gwala pulled back his spear arm, tensed, and prepared to throw. For a moment he doubted himself. What would happen if he missed? No, he would not miss. Missing was not an option. He would strike down the beast, for he was Gwala, Gwala the Shadow Stalker, and he always got his quarry. Shoomp thud! Akmotesh heard the telltale sound of his friend's spear finding its mark. A wheezing gurgle let him know without a doubt that the hunter's aim had been true. The priest had seldom seen Gwala miss, and, though he sometimes doubted his friend never seemed to doubt himself. And perhaps that was the secret to his success, the priest mused. Slowly, cautiously, Akmotesh opened his eyes, peering through the holes in his helm. Gwala's aim had indeed proven true. The giant lizard lay writhing on the ground in a pool of its own blood. It no longer seemed to have the presence of mind or ability to use its petrifying stare, but Akmotesh didn't want to take any chances. Quickly he ran to the beast, sword in hand, ready to avert his gaze at a moment's notice. Upon reaching the creature, he delivered a finishing blow. "Behold the treasure which you seek," he said to Vendar, "the Eyes of Apsut." "What?" asked the treasure-seeker. He rubbed his head in confusion and disbelief as he approached the dead lizard. "The Eyes of Apsut is a creature and not a pair of jewels?" "Perhaps it's why the inscription called this place the Living Shrine," Akmotesh suggested. "It housed a relic, but one of flesh and blood, a creature whose destructive abilities and reptilian appearance made them believe it was sacred to their god." "No, that can't be," Vendar protested. "There has to be something else in here." He made a cursory and haphazard inventory of the room, running this way and that before ultimately accepting the reality of things. In frustration, he threw his sword. It clattered on the floor. "Why does the Prince of Thieves hate me so much to bless me with such foul luck?" he lamented. Akmotesh had no words of advice to give, especially now when every second counted. "If you wish to take your leave of us, I understand," he said. Vendar sighed. And go where? Try to escape from a temple crawling with snakemen and gods know what else? No, we're in this one to the end. Good, Akmotesh replied. Then we have no time to waste. The girl isn't here. We must search elsewhere.